Welcome to Performance Anxiety. If you're new to the show, we're just a casual talk with creative people about how they got to where they are. We usually get some great stories along the way, and this week we speak with Chris Kang and Ray Knipe of Huntsmen. The music is like if Crosby, Stills and Nash made a doom metal album. They tell me how they got started, their unique songwriting viewpoint, and how mental health issues play an important role in the band. They've done some unusual collaborations, like with Brimminghorn Meadery and Metal Monkey Brewery. Check out their recent release, Mandala of Fear, on Prosthetic Records. Check out their website, huntsmandoom.com, for all their social media accounts. Follow us at Performance ANX, rate, review, and share. Let's get on with the show and Huntsmen.
Hi, we're Chris from Huntsmen. All right, here we go. We're just gonna do
Should I look away? Sometimes that makes people uncomfortable.
We
go like this. 1, 2, 3. I'm Chris.
I'm Ray.
And we're Huntsman.
And this is Performance Anxiety.
We are Huntsmen. We're very pleased to be on Performance Anxiety. You must have known about us before asking us to be on the show, since it's called Performance Anxiety. We have an album, Mandala of Fear, coming out March 13th, if it's not already out by the time you hear this. And we love you.
I don't know whose artwork is behind you guys, but I love it.
Oh, yeah, it's a friend of mine. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Dude.
Bikini tops and dogs. I mean, that's just great. You can't beat that.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you guys for coming on tonight. So the way I found out about you guys was kind of interesting, because I did a show with the guys from Brimminghorn Meadery.
Yep.
And we were talking about different types of mead and the mead and metal series that they did. And I was telling them what kind of mead I liked, because I actually didn't know what kind of mead I liked, but they were describing some of the ones that they've done. And I was saying, all right, well, you know what? I like Currents. I like this. I like that. And like, oh, okay. You got to talk to Huntsmen. So I'm describing what mead I like, and they're like, you guys got to check out this band. So.
Yeah.
So like, okay, so that's how I found out about you guys. And I haven't tried your mead yet, but how did you guys actually end up hooking up with Brimminghorn and doing a mead? That episode, at the time of this recording, I'm going to qualify that episode hasn't been released yet. But for those who haven't heard it, which is everybody at this point, mead is just a type of honey wine, and the basic ingredients are honey, water, and yeast. But they did a whole series of mead and metal with metal bands. How much input did you guys have on the flavors, and how did they approach you? Did you approach them to do it? How did that all come about?
So it kind of started. JR, I think, has just been friends with our representative at Prosthetic Records, Steve.
Okay.
And so I think they kind of toss ideas around to each other. And when we released our first album, American Scrap, those guys reached out to us. And it kind of started as just like, listen to this band, this is good, like them posting on Twitter or whatever. And then...
Okay.
guitar player, Kirill, he's a big
alcohol? It's not limited to... Wait, I think there's a word for that. I can't put my finger on it.
But so Kirill started just being like, oh, cool. Like, I like mead. You know, this seems really cool. These guys seem cool. They like us. So he kind of reached out and was just like, we should collab. And then immediately the Brimminghorn guys were just like, yeah, let's do it. So we started tossing around ideas. And the first thing they they wanted from us is they're like, what's your idea for your mead? You know, like, are you trying to think of a theme? Are you trying to think of a feeling that it could evoke? Do you have flavor profiles? All that stuff.
Okay.
So we just kind of started talking to him about the themes of the album and kind of this. Well, Chris, you could probably speak to that better than I could.
Yeah. So what are the themes of the album? And American Scrap is your first full length, and it came out what year?
Yeah. 2018. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 20. That's right. Yeah, we had a couple of EPs before that.
Right.
But Scrap was the first full length. Yeah. American Scrap it's got kind of like Americana meets like doom metal kind of thing going on,
right.
Where there's like some sort of like folky stuff and I don't know, like kind of some more like sort of creepy, quieter, you know, like old feeling sort of tones and sentiments. And essentially we just use that like the same way that we use like the heavy music, because they're just like dynamic angles. You know,
Okay.
they're just ways of like, you know, like being quiet or loud, right?
Right. Yeah. Like Jimmy Page says, the light and the shade.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And, that one, I don't know, kind of like ends up being like a little bit about just like sort of like Rust Belt America and like this kind of like weird parallel timeline that ends in this sort of like dystopian, you know, thing with like the whole like nuclear apocalypse and all that good stuff. But it kind of spans a pretty long time frame. And it kind of like starts around like, I don't know, just like, coal mining in Appalachia, like early days. Like I grew up in Virginia, and so somehow that's just like weirdly like part of my subconscious.
Oh,
you know?
okay. So I got to stop you there for 1 second. Where in Virginia did you grow up?
Richmond.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I live in Winchester, so I'm doing.
Oh, no way. All right. Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
So I'm doing
yeah.
the show from Winchester right now. So.
Oh, sweet. All right. Right on. Yeah, I know where that is. Yeah, of course. Yeah. That's great. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I had to find that out. So.
No, you're good. Yeah. I don't know. I always love running into people from Virginia because I don't know. They usually don't venture into the Midwest or don't normally run into them. I know when I was growing up, like if you were to like ask me where Chicago was, I'd be like, because you got like your East Coast,
To
you
the
got your
left.
West, and then it's like somewhere in the middle. But
Yeah.
Right. So,
But so that then translates, you know, into what the mead could be. You know, mead is kind of a really old, you know, ancient even form of making alcohol, right? So that kind of fits into this too. And, you know, this like cherry mead aged in bourbon barrels, you know, bourbon obviously. I know. Good, right?
I got to get me some of your stuff, man.
Yeah. And you know, that just kind of translates to this like Rust Belt, you know, a little bit South Americana vibe. And immediately when we kind of started talking about this, those guys started spitting out ideas like crazy.
That's awesome.
And immediately every single thing that they, you know, were asking us about, we're like, yeah, that sounds great. That sounds do it.
Yeah, Kirill came up with this like so you did Kirill the alcohol guy.
Yeah. Who, by the way, is the only person I've ever known to say I like mead just out of the blue.
Well, he's just a big like
connoisseur.
Like he loves like going to breweries and like keeping track of, you know, like that type of stuff. And so
nice.
This is like right up his alley, even though it was mead and he didn't have a lot of exposure to it. He just likes the whole process of like the ritual behind it and everything, you know?
Okay.
And so he just decided, we basically let him run with it because it was like in his wheelhouse. And so he was working with the Brimming Horn guys, and he was like, "Oh, I want to call this thing The Last Breath," and kind of relate it to like this whole like nuclear fire thing, right?
Okay.
And then they're like, "Okay, Chris, write a quote for it too." And they're like, "I don't know, like drink mead by the fire." And well, I kind of ended up like finding some cool way to like tie it into like how like fires or like man's relationship with fire through the ages and how it like sustained us and then it'll destroy us and all this crazy shit, you know. But like I guess the fun part is that then like Brimming Horn had an artist, I think, right, who ended up taking on like the bottle art and like did this weird grim scene with a bunch of like hooded figures with like just like fire consuming them and all this stuff. And so it ended up like really feeling like a collaboration. And my favorite thing about that And then also like this later collaboration that we're working on. I don't know if I can talk about it. Right? Yeah. With like Metal Monkey Brewery is it like lets these people who are like big metal fans and just big music fans like contribute to the story in a weird way.
Oh, cool.
Because like they get involved, they go like, what's this about? Like, what kind of like feeling should it have? And so when they make their like mead or they make their beer and it like kind of lines up with a record, it's like part of the canon of it, I guess, in a way,
That is awesome. And then, you've got something you can connect with your fans there too. They can go out and find this mead or the beer and say, you know what, these guys had a hand in this, and it's kind of a completely new way to connect with you guys.
Yeah,
100%.
And a true collaboration. Like I always wonder sometimes you see bands collaborating on certain things. You're like, did they really have a hand in this creation, in the direction or anything? Like, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm just wrong about that.
Were they just paid something to use their name in it?
Yeah.
Hard to suss that out.
It could be. And that's why for us, like that's one of our really big things is if we're going to collaborate with somebody or something, we want it to be a part of our message, and we want to have a hand in it, and not to take anything over, but to just truly, let both parties feel satisfaction from the creation, I guess.
Yeah, make it a true collaboration.
Yeah, this is like, if you guys will indulge me in this, like something that like occurred to me that I really liked about this whole process is like Huntsman's like approach to music tends to be really like narrative, and kind of we like to do like a bunch of storytelling stuff. And, like something that is clearly just sort of a problem of our age is that everybody's just like more and more disconnected. And like storytelling is a thing that connects people. Mm-hmm. And so this in a way is just like a way of connecting people, like you said, and like just like trying to go against this pattern and this trend of isolating ourselves and figuring out how to like bring ourselves back together with like a common story or something, Well,
that is a great point, because with social media and everybody tends to think we're all connected, but we're actually more disconnected because you're in front of your phone the entire time. People are posting, you've got a screen name. It's not your face. It may be a picture of, instead of you, it could be a picture of some girl in a bikini with a dog.
I might just have that on one of my profiles.
So you're not actually communicating with people. You tend to be more of an asshole to people because you have that anonymity, even though you're in a group. You're connected globally, but I don't think you're actually connected. So
and you're putting on a facade too. When you're the photos that you post, the things that you say, you're thinking about it. It's not coming naturally as in a conversation. You're meticulously picking out these things to show people, to just look at me, I'm having a great time. I get to go to fucking the UK or whatever it is.
My life is amazing.
Yeah,
you're always picking out the best. Unlike the intro that you guys are going to do later, people are picking out the best of their stuff. I like to pick the worst out.
I can't wait to see what you come up with. It's going to be like word for word, just like edited. It's like, Chris from Huntsmen.
You know what? That's a great idea. But the thing is, and going back to the collaborations that you guys are doing, I can totally picture people telling stories while drinking your mead or drinking the Huntsman beer, and you're sitting down outside. Maybe there's a campfire going. Maybe you're just having a nice meal outside and just telling stories with the beer or the mead that was the collaboration with the band whose main purpose is to tell stories.
I hope so. Yeah. I think like in that vein, one of the really kind of sweet things that happens along with these collaborations is, without fail, basically we find some way to like hook up with, like Brimming Horn or with Metal Monkey. So like with the Brimming Horn, they came to Chicago to play a Chicago all metal, festival like year before last, right? Called Forever Death Fest. And it was a lot of bands that, like a few bands that they'd actually collaborated with, including Huntsmen. And they just brought like a like box full of mead and set up in the green room, and everybody just hanging out, and we're just drinking everybody's meads and like eating, just listening to loud ass music, and like it was just such a warm time. And then later we ended up going to Milton, Delaware, which is where the meadery is, and it's like, you know, it's like kind of out of the way, and but they just have this like awesome tight little community there, and they all came, their community all came out to like, you know, celebrate like this Viking fest that they do. And like, we happen to be playing it, and like the warmth and like the sort of like feeling of like communal, like kind of togetherness. It was just different than most things that you can get into in life, you know?
Even in the most basic way, like while we're playing, there's families and like children running around dancing and stuff. And we're just like playing this, you know, pretty aggressive, heavy music. Right. They loved it. They stayed. We played for like an hour and a half.
Oh, wow.
And they were just there the entire time watching us, you know. Yeah. It was really, really cool.
That is fantastic. I love those guys. After we recorded, they said, "What's your address?" So I gave them my address, and they sent me 2 bottles of mead to try. Because I said, you know, I remember when I was a kid, my dad, and this show is like half of the show's gonna be about mead. This is crazy. I remember my dad getting me a bottle of mead, and I'm thinking, this is disgusting. And I told the guy that Birmingham, I said, you know, my only experience is with some weird shit my dad got me when I had just turned 21. I was reading, you know, Lord of the Rings and all kinds. Yeah. So he just bought me mead. You know, mead's not readily accessible in most places. So he thought, okay, well, I'll support my son's. You know, at least he's not on drugs and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Right. And you know,
get him hammered.
Yeah, I'll get him some mead. He can drink it at home. And I drank, and I had it. And I was like, "This isn't anything like I thought it was going to be." So I told the guys, and so like, "Oh, all right, here, we're sending you some stuff." And they sent me the regular honey wine, and they sent me that. I know I'm going to get this. The Svartal bar, the one with currants in it. Oh,
I also don't know the name, but I know the one you're talking about because like currants, like, whoa, yeah, it's delicious.
It is amazing. That is. Out of the 2 that I've tried, that is my favorite. So
yeah.
So all right, so I want to get more into you guys and a little less into the mead. So I found out that your bassist plays the tuba, and I wanted to find out about you guys. Did you start off on an instrument maybe that wasn't the guitar or the drums? Is there something a little different in your musical history?
Yeah, we're all tubists, all of us, actually. We met at tuba camp.
Nice. My son plays the tuba.
I'm a liar.
No, but for me, like, my entire family is musicians.
Okay.
My dad was a band director, a high school band director for 40 years. He just retired a couple years ago. He was a trumpet player. My mother plays oboe and piano. My older brother plays sax and guitar and bass and keyboard, and my younger brother plays trumpet and piano. They're all extremely good.
Wow.
So me growing up, like I took piano lessons, you know, which I hated for a really long time.
I hear that from everybody. I start off on piano and I hated it.
I know. And my mom always said, she's like, "You're going to thank me one day." And sure enough, here I am. Thank you, Mom. You did it. And it made me a better person.
Thanks, Mom.
All right, Chris, what about you, man? Is there something in your musical past?
Yeah, sure. I do want to point out that like Ray is just like full of the best surprises. Like we went to his house in Michigan when we were on a tour for American Scrap. And, you know, of course, they've got like the piano set up, and Ray just starts playing ragtime. And I'm like, I didn't know you could fucking do that.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was great. So Ray can play some mean ragtime, which is nothing that any of us expected. Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah, that was
You know what that means? Because see, I spent about a decade in Alabama. My brother graduated from the University of Alabama. My college didn't have a football team. I went to Rochester Institute of Technology for photography, so we're a bunch of geeks, not very athletic. So no football team. They had a hockey team, rugby, and baseball, and that was about it. And so I just kind of adopted my brother's team and became a fan. And I always like Leonard Skinner, but you get a whole new appreciation for it once you're down there. But the one thing that I noticed is that the piano sounds a lot like ragtime piano in like every single one of their songs.
Oh yeah.
Maybe that's something you guys should do. Do like a Leonard Skinner cover. And Ray can do the piano.
I mean, like, one of my favorite things about the band is like there's not a lot that's off limits. It's like if it somehow lends itself to like a story we're trying to tell or something, it's on the table.
Yeah, we worked
good idea.
up,
Thanks.
We worked up some CSNY stuff just to possibly cover.
Yeah, that's true.
It's funny you mention that because I was going to bring this up a little later once we get into some of the details, but I was listening to
Right Out.
Yeah, Right Out. I knew it. I'm like, Run Out. No, it starts with an R. While my brain is, all right. So Right Out. That to me is amazing. It's got like this Crosby, Stills, Nash vocal harmony. It's kind of like if CSNY were playing with Pelican or something. It's incredible.
Fuck yeah.
I love it. Is that something that you guys have had from the beginning, that the vocal harmonies, has that always played a big role in the songwriting?
It does now, but it didn't in the beginning. And it really didn't until Ray joined, because Ray can sing and scream and growl, and it's cool. And Mark, the bass player, can also sing. And okay. Mark and I would occasionally do like 2-part harmonies. But when we figured out Ray could sing, we're like, oh, well, we got to do this. Like, It's just... it was just kind of like, it was almost like the tool is there, so let's see what we can do with the tool. Yeah. And that's basically how it manifested, is because I think like when, I don't know, I feel like for my part, a lot of the things where I was like, we should do a stacked harmony like here. I definitely just like in the back of my mind was like thinking like CSNY type stuff, like just something about it just feels so like good and like soulful and like weirdly gut wrenching. Already doing heavy music, and it's like, well, let's just add this to the mix and see what happens. And we were like really happy with it. And then now we brought Amy into the band as well, and she's also an incredible singer. So we can do like 4-part harmonies. We can like do like 3-part harmonies with some screams going on. It's just like a tool in the bag to try and get the point across,
Yeah, you know what? I remember too. There was a time I went to Denver Riot Fest, the last Denver Riot Fest, and I was pretty hammered. And the headliner the first day was Deftones, who I've loved forever.
Nice.
I'd never seen. And I watched Deftones, and literally like, everyone obviously was, played so good, but their dynamics just shook me, because they could get so delicate. And then when they got heavy, they literally shook the fucking ground.
Wow.
Like the entire ground, and there's mountains behind me. And it was like the best moment. It was one of the best things I'd ever seen. And I remember coming back to Chicago and going to practice, and not to just say we need to do this. I was like, listen, guys, I saw the Deftones, and now we need to play like the Deftones. No. But the one thing that I really wanted to like communicate to these guys was that, dynamics need to be our friend, because we can do it, and we can really delicate, and we can get really heavy. And we at the same time, we had also started messing around with harmonies. I'm just like, these are the things that I think, from my opinion, are going to make us, not just another doom band, not just another stoner band, where, let's be honest, a lot of them, sound very similar to each other.
Yeah.
Not a bad thing. You like what you like. But
yeah, exactly.
We can do more, and I want to do more. And I always want to push the envelope and try to figure out new ways to create new sounds.
Well,
right?
Yeah. And that was going to be one thing I wanted to ask you, was that the band has this amazing dynamic of varied vocals. You know, you've got the screaming and the growling, but then you've also got the beautiful singing. I mean, there are times, I'm trying to remember, I think it was on the second EP, The Colonel, where one song, I think maybe it's you, Chris, singing, it sounded like Michael Giraffe from Swans.
Right on. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I was like, at his most delicate, because he's another guy that can do both, where he can just be completely menacing and then go into a snarl and then do something absolutely beautiful in the same song.
Yeah, I love Swans, and I love his voice. It's fucking cool. And thanks. That's a great comparison. Cool.
I'm glad.
Yeah. Okay, so this is related kind of to your question about like what instruments did you guys play when you were younger. So I also took lessons. Also hated it. But like kind of related to that, the reason I took piano lessons is because my dad was just like really, really into classical music. And he was like, that's what you should do. He's just always listening to like classical music records. And I also hated that at the time. I went to a school that actually had like music classes that would actually like dissect like, the pieces of classical music. So we'd listen to like Peter and the Wolf. And they'd be like, you hear that oboe? That's the wolf. And you're like, wait, wow. The oboe is the wolf? And so like, you just like, it like kind of created in the back of my mind this like idea that different instruments or different tonalities or different, just like any different way of like expressing or articulating or vocalizing or playing something can like pretend to be something that's like an element of a story, whether it's a character or the weather around it or like a thing in the scene. And like, you just have all these like little Lego pieces that you can like put together into this cool story. So, and that I kind of like filed away because I hated it at the time and something in my mind. But then like when we started like doing the vocal harmonies and like we had this like really big, like range of, like really soft music, sometimes really acoustic to like really loud music. And then you got like clean singing and you've got screams and like all this stuff. It just started to like click that it's like, this is like Peter and the Wolf. Yeah. It's just, you just have all these little things that you can just put together and suggest something at somebody and trust people to like get it, So
with that knowledge that you guys have, you're able to tell the story with the lyrics that you've written, but you're also telling the story with the music that you're writing.
Yeah.
Yeah. This has been, or actually became a much bigger part in how we write too. Like Chris will start with a riff or something or a lyric or whatever, a melody. And immediately he's saying, well, this is where I want the story to go. And then we have to think, well, how can we convey that story purely with instruments? And then maybe we'll add vocals later on or whatever, depending on the song. And then we say, well, how can we enhance the story by doing this? Is this a sad part of the story? Is it a happy part of the story? And the melodies that come out of that are purely based on what we want to say, without actually saying it.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, one thing I really love doing when we write songs is to like use the fact of an instrumental, because like I love Pelican and I love Russian Circles, like they're some of my very favorite bands in the way they can tell a story with just instrumentals,
Yeah.
But since we aren't just instrumental or just not instrumental, like one thing that I found that we sort of ended up doing that I really like is to kind of have a lyrical portion that sort of like plants the seed of some story or like kind of like suggests something. Okay. And then a long instrumental part that just sort of is like, now go think about that.
Yeah.
Because like for me anyway, like when I'm listening back to it as we're writing it, it's like space to reflect on what I just heard somebody say to me, with the music creating a backdrop to it, the instruments. So
that is fantastic. I love bands that understand that the music needs to breathe a little bit. And, you don't need to hammer the message into everybody. Some people you do.
Yeah.
Me sometimes. Me, but not all the time. So
right, yeah.
So giving the music that space is really crucial, especially if you're telling a story.
Right on. Yeah, I definitely like a big goal of mine is to just engage people and to like ignite imagination. Because that was just such a big thing that like helped me like fucking survive my childhood. It was just like keeping my imagination going,
Yeah.
Not to be like super dramatic, but Childhood sucks. Like, but yeah. But like, I love the thought of like that everybody has an imagination, and it's like waiting to show them stuff. And like, if you can spark it, that's just one of the coolest things you can do.
Look, here's another thing too. Like, I remember when I was, I don't know, 12 or so or something, I used to play Diablo a lot.
Oh, I remember that.
Right. And when I was at that time, like, I was really into kind of classic metal, like, Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and Slayer and Ozzy Osbourne and all these bands. And I used to listen to it while I played Diablo. And now if I ever think of Diablo, I think of these bands. But then on the same flip, if I listen to just the bands, I think of not only Diablo, but I think of my childhood and where I was and like what I was thinking about and what I was doing. And I mean, this is a little bit different than what we're talking about, but it's one of those things where it's just literally this music is not just, I mean, even these classic metal songs, a lot of them are kind of aggressive pop songs, really, they're structured as such.
Right.
And even in that context, it still can take me back and change the way I was thinking. And even today, I still feel that. And I think it's a really cool thing.
Oh, yeah, I love that. I mean, music it's an indelible part of your youth. I'll transition it to this way. I loved Dio era Sabbath. I mean, everybody loves Ozzy Sabbath, but I also love the Dio era Sabbath.
Hell yeah.
I've been listening to your, well, I won't say by the time this comes out, it'll be your back catalog because the new album will be out. But I've been listening to a lot of the older stuff, and I was listening to the song, especially the beginning of the song Pyre. And that reminds me so much of like Sign of the Southern Cross.
Too many voices in the fall. Each of them calling to his God. A harmony sets their souls free.
Like this. And then I started thinking about that song, and then I started thinking about what I was doing when I first heard that, when I got that album, how old was I and what I was doing. So your music made me start to think about being a kid again, even though, you wrote the song like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
That's great.
That's literally exactly what I had hoped. You know what I mean?
Now we're done. Close
awesome.
the left.
Hey, if I could get you guys to do that bad intro. So how did you guys meet to form the band? And is there anything behind the name Huntsmen?
Yeah, sure. I'll roll with this. So Mark, it was like kind of a slowly pieced together sort of thing. Mark and I met really early on when both of us moved to Chicago. That was around like 2006.
Okay, so what took you from Virginia to Chicago?
A job.
Okay.
I came here to work somewhere. I worked. It was like I work in like IT and tech and stuff like that. So it was like a tech job. I quit like 4 months after I started, but now I'm here. So Mark was one of my first. He was a roommate in like this like 4-bedroom like place that I was the first living place here. So we just found out that each other played music, and at some point we just started kind of jamming songs together, and we formed kind of like a little bit more of like I guess like an alt grunge rock kind of band for a while. Okay, and that's where we ended up picking up Kirill, who's the other guitarist.
The Mead Lover.
What's that? Sorry,
the Mead Lover.
Mead Lover, yeah. The alcohol connoisseur, friend of the drink. Yes. He was in another band. His band broke up. He ended up joining us playing guitar, and we had a couple of different drummers. And at some point, we were just like, we really want to be playing heavier stuff. Like we all had like this background in it that we just weren't really like playing at all with the music that we were playing. That was like kind of more like a little grungy. Yeah, and at some point, essentially, like we were looking for a drummer, and Mark knew Ray through Chicago Music Exchange, where they were both working, and Ray joined. And my favorite thing about that whole thing is like, usually if you're a band and you're trying out a drummer, they like show up and they're like, okay, what do you want me to play? And you're like, okay, so here's a song. You play the song. Like Ray just showed up like with all of our songs already learned.
Wow.
So we're like,
damn,
we're good enough for this guy. It was awesome. And like, it just kind of, I don't know, I haven't really like felt this much like belonging in something, or like that we just like click really well. We get along really well together. I don't know. We just vibe really well like between us. So
there's another thing too, like, especially with Amy joining. Amy is my partner for almost 10 years now.
Oh, wow.
And she's given me full permission to talk about this. She has quite a bit of mental health issues that she kind of deals with on a regular basis. And right when we started talking about getting her more involved, the first thing that everyone said to her without any prompting is, you don't have to do anything more than you're comfortable with. You can take on as small or as big of a role in the band as you want. And because everyone, and this is like me excluded, basically, because these guys were so accepting of that and so understanding about mental health and what that means and anxiety and everything together, that she felt, that, you know what, maybe I can do this because I'm surrounded by people who actually understand where I'm coming from. They're not going to judge me. They're not going to, change the way we do anything or talk to each other around her.
Right.
We're all just a big group together. And even more so now that we're, balls deep in fucking all this PR stuff and getting the album ready and doing everything. It's a ton. It gets really stressful. And Amy tells me, she's like, I'm so glad that I can be a part of something where everyone is so understanding and gracious and never, or I guess is more conscious about how each other is feeling,
right.
at a given moment. If anyone for a second says like, I'm not feeling up to it, we're all like, cool, man. Hope you're doing good. What's up? Like
Yeah.
Mark will call me up and be like, hey, you want me to bring you a joint or something?
Sure.
yeah.
And it's important, especially if you're going to be on the road with a band. Like I've, done a little bit of touring in my day, and it gets extremely stressful, especially with your close friends. That makes it even worse because your opinions are just out there, and you can just let it rip because it's your friend, you don't gotta like back or anything. And it's hard sometimes. So that's
one of the recurring things I hear a lot doing this show is that you've got to love the people in your band, because when you're touring, you're going to be spending 24 hours a day with them for months on end. So you better like these people that you're hanging out with.
Yeah. When we were in the studio for Mandala Fear, the record that we're trying to put out, Sanford Parker, who was engineering it for us, like at some point we were like, we would have like within the band like kind of like slightly tense moments of like, I think that was supposed to like go a little differently. And like at some point we're like, Sanford, sorry if like this is like a lot of drama or something for you. And he's like, are you kidding? Most bands hate each other. Like you guys are like the most like diplomatic band that I've ever seen.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So now is Amy the president at the end of American Scrap?
Yeah, that's her. Yeah.
Okay. That song is amazing.
Cool. Yeah.
That whole album is incredible. I mean, I wish I had found it when it came out.
Well,
I just found out about it not too through the Birmingham guys. So.
Yeah, right on. Yeah.
Yeah,
cool.
I mean, that's
Thanks.
like our first album, first full length, and with this kind of thing, like we weren't a band seeking to do anything more than really just be a local band. Like, we had fun playing and we just wanted to play shows, and that was about it.
Yeah.
And Steve at Prosthetic approached us when we played with the band Chemists, and he just kind of gave us his card. He's like, I've been watching you for a little while, give me a call. Maybe we could work something out. And as we started thinking about it, we all just came to the conclusion that's like, yeah, you know what, we should try to do some more stuff. Let's play some more shows. Let's be a little bit more of a serious band. And then Amy, we got her involved a little bit, and she sang on The Last President. And then this album came, and we still weren't, she wasn't a full-time member at that point when we recorded this album.
Okay.
But she just got involved more because of the themes of this album in general, which Chris could probably talk about more. But then after the album was basically recorded is when we said, you know what, like you give us this really rich dynamic that we were missing,
Yeah.
And with involved, like it, we can just do so much more, another tool in the toolbox.
Yep.
So with your expanding sound and progressing sound and the addition of Amy on vocals, do you guys still consider yourselves post-apocalyptic cowboy metal?
Yeah.
Sure.
How many bands are in that genre? Sounds like there might just be one.
Yeah, that's
No, there's I think there's probably a lot. There's probably a lot, man. Yeah, I can't conjure them to mind, but like sometimes like that, like kind of like I don't know, like folky, like kind of country twangy vibe in metal. Like you do see that crop up. Like even Mastodon, like fucking Brent Hines is was just a banjo player, and like he's like playing banjo on his like electric guitar, for a lot of like, yeah.
I mean, I've been getting these guys to listen to like a lot of Opeth too right now.
Oh yeah.
And they run the gambit too. And I'm still just saying, I'm like, dude, they can do so many different things. This is like such an amazing band that we can like aspire, to.
Oh yeah. Damnation is one of my favorite albums. That is an incredible piece of art.
Yeah.
So you guys didn't tell me, is there anything behind the name Huntsman, or was that just something like, we got to come up with a name?
It was like, we got to come up with a name, and also we're going to try and do the post-apocalyptic cowboy metal thing.
Right.
Because like, early on it didn't have like very cohesive, like themes to it, because it was just like a sandbox for us.
Okay.
Like, let's just make these little like vignettes, like these little stories about people who like survived the apocalypse and like what's life like for them, and kind of like a Walking Dead sort of way,
Okay.
And, yeah, and like kind of the first story that sort of, I don't know, revealed itself, I guess, was off of our first EP. Is the song called "Hunt for Food, Not Sport."
My story, the miles, kills my life. The hills are my home, the fire my wife. The dirt is in my blood, my will is undone. It's enough to make the same man go around.
And we just pictured it as this like crazy old bean-eaten dude out in the middle of the desert, like losing his mind from like radiation poisoning, sitting by a fire, and like somehow just like the whole like the word huntsman, like, and the images that it evokes of like, people sort of self-sufficient out in the wilderness, like with some sort of purpose or something that they're tracking, like just felt really good. So yeah.
Well, going on with that, I was listening to that EP today, and Phoenix is insane. I absolutely love that song.
You took you far from home. Too hard to callous. A promise made of
Oh, thanks. I love like hearing what people have to say about it because it's so smooth.
It
like,
is.
like everything else we've done, it's like so not heavy at all. It's like you know.
Exactly. Well, I love that. And that's the thing I loved about listening to you guys. Like Canary King, you guys start off, a cappella. It's amazing.
Yeah. Again, that's like
fun.
we're just, every time we think about a new song, half of it is us thinking about it really hard directly, and the other half is just how the song just naturally comes about. And nobody is, none of us are too metal to not, do something delicate.
Right.
And, vice versa too. So,
yeah, thank God for that. I think like a lot of, like we're all big just metal fans, but there are no like diehard metalheads that are like, that's not metal. Like,
Right.
Thank God. Cause I mean, God bless those people. Seriously, like, no joke, but it would be very hard for us to work with because we just like to do too many different things,
One thing I hear kind of a lot actually too, in one of our last shows, this guy came up and he had, he was all studded out, like super studded jacket with all the patches and all the shit. And he was like, I normally only listen to black metal, but you guys are pretty good.
There you go.
I was like, okay, if we can win over this guy, I think we're all right.
You get an acceptance from the black metal community. So I've only been able to hear 2 tracks off of the new album, Mandala of Fear. So it's Ride Out and then A Nameless Dread.
Yeah.
So because the time we're recording this, the album hasn't come out yet. So I can only listen to what I can pull out on Bandcamp. So, but those songs are so different from each other. Like I was saying before, Ride Out could be like some Pelican meets Crosby, Stills and Nash. It's amazing. Are there any other weird surprises on that album?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, awesome.
This album is a fucking journey. I mean,
Awesome.
It's a cohesive story, and like I was saying earlier, every song depicts something in that story and kind of symbolizes different things throughout that journey that we're trying to convey. It goes into the crushing, like, super metal parts like A Nameless Dread, and also these really pretty delicate things like parts of Ride Out and a couple other songs on the album too, which is basically by design. I mean, Chris, you could probably speak to that a little bit more too.
It just sort of like depends. I don't really when I'm kind of like coming up with initial riffs and lyrics and so on, I really don't constrain myself a whole lot, this has to be this style. Like I definitely it kind of goes back to like the whole, like the fact that like as a band we really try not to do stuff worrying about how it will come across, and instead we just try and do it and sort of like do like a leap of faith thing with it,
Okay.
And so like Mandala of Fear is sort of supposed to follow the story of a soldier who essentially is deployed in this like desert war. It's like kind of unclear whether it's in the US or in the Middle East, and that's sort of intentional. And she just goes through like all this really horrific traumatizing shit. And so there's a story arc, and like if you ever just sort of like if you think about like a typical like month that you go through and you think about like your soundtrack for that month of shit you listen to, it's not all just like Slayer, right? You've got like some, I don't know, some like quieter music. You've got some like, oh, I just need something to get me going music. It's
You
like
got some stuff that you don't want people to know you're listening to.
Yeah, totally, exactly, right. And like I think that like the honest thing to do is to just lay all that shit out on the table, because we all do it. And like I'm really tired of like people like going like that's not cool or that's inconsistent or something like that. Like this is just how life goes. It's like varied, weird, and it's like erratic and it's spastic, and like you get really like intense like depressing moments, and you get like anxiety filled moments, and sometimes you just like I don't know, but you got to get the idea. So it sort of runs all over the place. Yeah.
you don't like you're saying, you don't have just one emotion. You've got a gamut of things you're feeling, and not one type of music is not going to fill all those needs.
Yeah.
Not when I feel shitty, maybe I want to hear some, I don't know, something horrible, something really sad. Maybe I want to hear some Swans. I don't know. Maybe I want to hear Morrissey.
But yeah, exactly. I agree.
Yeah. So one of the things that I thought was really interesting was, now that you mentioned what Mandala of Fear is about, you've written a lot from with the female perspective, with a female protagonist. So how does that come about? Is that intentional, or is it just subconscious? Or, I mean, are you doing that to help the story? Is it working better with a female lead over a male lead?
Yeah. Here, if I roll with this one a little bit. Yeah. I think that's largely my doing a lot of the time. There are a lot of reasons, so seriously stop me at any point, but I'll just start kind of like going through them. But a big one is that I have just had a lot of strong like female role models in my life.
Okay.
Like my mom, for example, she's just like a really like steadfast, like loving, loyal, like caretaking person. And she was, really like wonderful and gentle with me when I was like younger and all this stuff. But she also was like this, like in the late 60s, was like writing letters to the editor of the Richmond Times-Dispatch, aka the most racist rag in town. Basically about like the death of Martin Luther King Jr. and how like we should all like look at ourselves and like think about who we're trying to cut. Like she was like a warrior,
Wow.
While like having this like side of taking care of me and, and my family. And she was like also like this really successful professional, where she was like working in tech, in the banking industry for like many, many years.
Wow.
And she was just like managing teams of like programmers doing like all these like huge projects. And like, she would tell me stories about like bosses who like often were just like really like, entitled men who would like tell her like, well, you have to do it this way. And she'd be like, well, I'm leaving if you don't listen to my correct advice.
Right.
And they would like, yeah. So like, I view her as like a legit badass who's not only a badass, but like also has the ability to be like sensitive and empathetic. And so it shaped my idea of what strength is, to not just like be the, kind of like male concept of strength, which I also associate with. Like I grew up on like fighter jets and fucking knights and dragons and all that shit. Of that. But like, it's just like, I just feel like I have like my concept of what strength can mean at its best is very broad spectrum,
Okay.
And so a lot of times when I think of like a character going through something really hard, I think of women because like their baseline is hard.
Yeah.
And like most women, without going into tons of detail, most women I've talked to have survived really bad traumatic things,
Yeah.
And gone on to just be awesome, successful people, and while bearing these burdens.
Yeah.
So when I think of people enduring, oftentimes it's, a woman or like a person of color,
Mm-hmm.
So
well, that's it. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's fantastic. I know my wife went through, her childhood was horrific, and we've built a great life together. We have 3 kids, and she's doing an amazing job. She works at a bank also, and she's just working her way through. She's working her way up and up and up, and she's just doing fantastic. I'm so proud of her. So stuff like this really, really hits home to me when the hero is female, because like you, she's a very strong. I don't want to say presence, because of course she's my wife, but she has a very strong character, and so you don't see. First of all, you don't see that in a lot of songwriting, but you really don't see it in a male dominated genre or band. So I think what you're doing is fantastic.
Thanks for saying that, man. That means a lot. Yeah, because like we just really, we don't care if people hate it. B, we like to know when people don't hate it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So the album's coming out in March, right?
Yeah, March 13th. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So by the time this comes out, it'll probably be out. Are you guys planning on touring to support the album?
Yeah, so we have we've kind of selected a handful of Midwest shows as of now that it's just kind of like cities that have been good to us in the past, and people keep asking us to come back, and we all have jobs and families and stuff. It's not so easy for us to tour as much as a lot of other bands, so we kind of try to be strategic about it. But that being said, we have that set up, and then we are going to be heading to Europe in late April, May, and we're playing Desert Fest. And sorry,
that's got some pretty big names in that.
Oh yeah, some amazing names: Corrosion of Conformity, Masters of Reality, Conan, Witchcraft, like so many amazing bands.
That is incredible.
Yeah,
we're super pumped. So cool.
Yeah, the woman that puts it on kind of has been paying attention to us since American Scrap, and only had like the most amazing things to say about us. So it was kind of just like, let's do it, let's figure it out, and let's go.
That's awesome.
Get some help, and hopefully we'll have a tour together around those dates too, being worked on now. You know how it goes.
I've heard of it. Well, I've heard how it goes. I've never toured myself. I'm the photographer of the bunch, so I usually go out and I'm the one taking the pictures. So
yeah.
It's what I went to It's what I went to college for. So
there we go.
So now you guys have played the Birmingham, that festival that they have party like it's 1739 or whatever it is.
793, 739.
Yeah, whatever, something like that.
We're pretty close, I think. Yeah.
So are you guys going to be around for that this year?
Unfortunately, no, not this year. Yeah, we're not able to. But we're definitely going to be back at some point.
Awesome.
Like, we had so much fun the first time, and they were so hospitable and put us up and fed us and got us drunk. It was amazing.
That's awesome. So, all right. So now you guys have toured in the past. You guys have got to have some pretty crazy tour stories. Some weird shit happening at a show. Because I did hear, and it wasn't a show that you were playing, but I did hear a story about Chris, you taking out a huge guy at a mosh pit at a Red Fang show.
Okay.
Mark likes to tell this story.
Mark likes to tell this story. I love Mark.
I love you too.
Cheers, man. Cheers. Yeah, no, I don't know. Like, I think it's, we were very, very drunk. That was a Red Fang show. And, I definitely like kind of hate like mosh pit dudes who just knock over people who like don't want to be knocked over.
Yeah, that'd be me. I don't know.
A lot of that. Yeah.
I'm a short guy. I'm like 5'6". I don't like being knocked over.
Yeah. And just people can be real assholes about it. But, yeah, allegedly I like downed this guy, but I really don't remember that at all. So just let him tell the story, and I hope maybe he won't watch this and like hear about that. But, yeah,
maybe we can have him come on and he can tell the story.
Like a really long time. Like I did like Muay Thai, kickboxing, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and stuff like that. So I think that's like the birthplace of the story, but I don't really get in fights, you know. Like I'm a pretty chill guy.
Well, have you guys had any interesting things happen while you're on stage or on tour? It's any horror stories or just amazing, awesome stories?
Well, the way we tour is pretty mellow, to be honest. I mean, we're kind of, we're not like, we don't party super hard and get into situations that a lot of other bands probably get themselves into. But that being said, I definitely have some personal, like, really dumb things that I've done on tours and with other bands in the past.
Oh, man.
I actually just told this story. I forget. It was for a blog. Oh, I'm such an asshole. Anyways. But we were playing, it was one of my old bands, and we were playing this venue in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And it was like really late at night, it was like 3 when we got out of the show, and all my friends had gone, and it was pissing rain, and we're like, whatever, find the closest, cheapest place. And it was like this Motel 8 or whatever.
Oh boy.
It's like right down the street.
Nothing good ever happens there.
Oh yeah. Well, this definitely was not good. So we get in there and like, two people go up to the front counter and they're like, well, we just need one room. It's just the two of us. Nothing weird here. And meanwhile, there's like, these like really gnarly like drug dealer dudes outside and whatever. So then they got the room and we immediately step out of the car and the lady comes up. She's like, what about the other 10 people that are getting out of your car? And we're like, yeah, okay, fuck. So the 10 of us or whatever it was split into like two groups, and some of the guys went to the one room and the rest of us went to the other one. And the one that I went into, we immediately walked in and it was just like freezing cold. And I'm looking around and it is fucking disgusting. And there's like stains on the fucking sheets and there's like just going around. We tried to turn on the water. The water's not working. The heat's not working. And at this point I was just like, whatever, just make this go away. And I pulled the sheet like over my head and I was just like, I'm not here. and barely, got to sleep for like 2 hours or whatever it was. So we wake up the next morning and we are like getting breakfast and I'm talking to all the other guys in the other room. And I was like, God, that place was so fucking shitty. Like it was disgusting. I probably have like some weird disease now. And they're like, what do you mean, dude? Our room was pretty clean. Like our heat worked. We had water. Everything was fine.
Oh, gee.
Fuck you assholes.
That sounds like a disgusting story to end on.
Yeah, no, Ray's right though. We don't like, I don't know. Huntsman is pretty chill when we've been on the road so far. Who knows what the future holds? But one thing I think of, it's probably the best thing I can offer you, is that Mark loves recording his shits, like in bathrooms, like not video recording, thankfully, but like audio record himself, just like unleashing the worst ass ham, and then he'll send it to the band with like a title like new riff, and it'll be like, hey guys, check this out. And it's just like him just like sharding and giggling. Like, this happened like every step we made on our
God, we stopped in Kentucky and Mark and I both went to the stalls next to each other and Mark is in there just like letting it rip like extremely loud, and I couldn't take it and I just started laughing. I'm like pounding on the stall and like I'm dying laughing so hard, like open mouth screaming laughing. And then I open up the stall and there's like 3 old timers just standing there waiting to use the bathroom.
Yeah, it's like Mark's he's a big dude, and like when he's like, he gets so like pleased with himself, like when he's like loudly shitting, he's just like like giggling like the Pillsbury Doughboy.
It's
a good time.
It's funny because at work today, a friend of mine came out of the bathroom and he's like, whoever was in the stall next to me was making the most horrific noises. And not just with their ass. It was like with, they're just like groaning and grunting. And I thought, and this is my exact train of thought. I'm like, I told him, I said, I'm having this band called Huntsmen. I'm talking to them tonight. We should record that and somehow make that into like some metal song. So, and I swear to God you guys are a step ahead of us. But I swear that actually happened today. So
yeah, a 3-part Sharpmany.
Yeah,
oh my God,
we've got shit metal in common.
Yeah.
Guys, man, this has been a blast. Thank you so much. Where can people pick up the album? How can they find it, and how can they follow you on social media to get some news?
Oh, yeah. Follow us on, we're on the normal stuff. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You can buy our album at our Bandcamp. You can buy it direct from Prosthetics web store. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Music. We run the gambit.
Bandcamp?
Yeah. Yep. Buy our stuff.
Yeah. and so you guys, you just, it's Huntsman on Facebook, Instagram, on Twitter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there might be slight variations depending on who owns what domain names here and there. Yeah, you'll find us,
Yeah, basically if you look for like Huntsman, metal, Chicago, you go wrong, yeah.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you. This has been a blast. Thank you so much.
Yeah, likewise.
I'm really looking forward to hearing the new album, man. I can't wait till it comes out.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks, man. Yeah, cheers.